we are going to show you how to create your own bot, not for chatting, but for trading. And guess what? All this can be done without any programming knowledge in just a few clicks. And this is possible because of the MotiveWave Strategy Builder. We have just released the latest edition of the Strategy Builder with awesome new features such as break-even, range conditions, plot shifting, and more. So I hope you're comfortably seated because this is going to be a very exciting tech talk. Now, before we get started, let me quickly make the lawyers happy and remind you that trading contains substantial risk and is not suited for every investor. If you trade, make sure to use risk capital. Should you lose risk capital, it will not affect your lifestyle. And when it comes to hypothetical performance or backtest results, keep in mind that these are not necessarily indicative of future performance. All right, so now that the lawyers are happy, let me get started. Now, we have with us today Niklas. Niklas has put together this latest edition of our strategy builder for MotiveWave, and he's going to show you how these new features will work. And we're going to create 2 new strategies together in just a few minutes each to showcase these new features. All right, so I am your host, Daniel, and I will be giving you the introduction today. And then I will lead it over to Niklas, who will give you a live demo on how the strategy builder works. Should you have questions, feel free to put them into the chat section of Zoom or into the Q&A section. And we're going to review these questions as we see fit. All right. Now, before we get into the topic, let me quickly remind you that this tech talk is recorded. So should you have to drop off or should you have arrived late, do not worry, you didn't miss anything. We are going to post the recording of this tech talk on our YouTube channel. You can easily find this channel if you go to our homepage, tradingindicators.com. In the top right corner, you'll see a little YouTube icon. Click on it. It will direct you to our YouTube channel where you can see all these recordings and more. We're posting regularly updates there about all kinds of things that we do, our webinars, our events, new product offerings, demos, and so forth. So make sure you subscribe to always stay up to date. Talking about staying up to date, let me give you a quick overview of what's new on our end. So a couple of things. We have released a new version of the MT4 portfolio tester and the MT5 portfolio tester. And if you remember, these are tools which can automate your back testing for MT4 and MT5. So instead of starting your back tests manually one by one and over again, you can simply batch program these back tests using the MT4 and MT5 portfolio tester, and then the tester will do the work for you. We've added a new feature to this, which will now allow you to, with a simple click, to select to test all the EAs installed on your MT4 or MT5 platform. This becomes very handy if you perhaps have hundreds or thousands, maybe even EAs. And this is possible if you create them with strategy builders for MT4 or MT5. And you want to test which of these EAs, of your hundreds of EAs, performs the best. So instead of selecting them all one by one, you can now simply select test all EAs, test all robots, and the strategy tester will do it for you. And this is now available for MT5 and for MT4. All right, so the second feature is the second new thing that we have is a new version. And I know it's been a while, so if you already had an older version, you're probably going to think, oh man, is this strategy build, is there going to be a new update soon? Well, it finally happened. We have just released version 1.026 of the MotiveWave strategy builder. And the new features include a break-even function, which we're going to showcase today. We added range conditions, which will allow you to specify whether a certain condition should be hold true at the current bar or perhaps within the last 5 or 10 bars. This makes it very convenient to look back a couple of bars. And we also include a convenience study, which we call the plot shifter. And what this study can do in conjunction with the strategy builder, we will demo it to you today. All right, so now let's get started. So the topic of today is how to build a MotiveWave trading bot in minutes. And this is not an exaggeration. It will literally take just a couple of minutes to click together your very own trading strategy. All right, so but before we actually look at these strategies, let me give you a quick overview of what the MotiveWave strategy builder actually does. So it is an add-on to MotiveWave. MotiveWave is one of the most powerful trading platforms out there. It is, it started off, or MotiveWave started off of being a platform for identifying Elliott wave counts, but it has quickly evolved from that point on to be a fully fledged trading platform with hundreds of built-in studies and strategies, with a scanning function, with watch lists. You can trade options with MotiveWave and so forth. So it's really a fully fledged platform. But there was one thing missing, which is a strategy builder. So if you wanted to have previously, prior to the strategy builder, if you wanted to have an automated strategy, you would need to contract it out to a programmer like us, for example. And we would then do the work, and then you would have your strategy. But then if you wanted to make a change, you would have to come back to us or to another programmer to make a change. And if you want to have a new strategy, the whole thing starts from the beginning again. So it's quite tedious, and of course, it also costs money. So what we've done, we have built a strategy builder for MotiveWave, which will allow you to create your very own trading strategies without any programming knowledge, simply by clicking them together. You can see this user interface here a little bit on the left-hand side. Now, this was not easy, and a good chunk of our research has gone into this because it really pushes the limits of what is currently possible with MotiveWave. Now, if you're familiar with the platform, you've probably never seen a window like this or a strategy like this with widgets and interactivity. Well, we figured out a way how to add it on, and this has now resulted in the strategy builder for MotiveWave. Just as a quick reminder, you require a MotiveWave edition because it comes in different versions, which supports the indicators on indicators feature, which is the feature which basically allows you to, create an average of an RSI. So in other words, apply a moving average study to an RSI study. An indicator applied to the output of another indicator. So this feature needs to be available in your MotiveWave. And I believe starting from the Pro version or perhaps even a version below this, this feature is included. If you're not certain, you can simply go to the MotiveWave homepage. They have a nice feature which compares all the different editions. And there you can check whether your edition has the indicators on indicators feature enabled. Now, let's assume it is enabled. And I highly recommend that you get this MotiveWave edition because they also have other cool features such as custom alerts, custom scans, and so forth. So let's assume you have this feature enabled. Then you can use our strategy builder to create your very own trading strategies. And these can be actually quite complex because we give you a lot of flexibility of what you can do. So you can define your own trading plans, not just one. It can be a whole combinations of multiple trading plans together, where you can define your entries, your exits. You can set stops and targets of varying complexity. So here, really, you can create a strategy which can be extremely complex, or perhaps a strategy which is quite simple. But you choose, and you can do it, but simply by clicking it together. You have the option to create what we call study conditions. For example, if an indicator does a certain thing, maybe gives you a signal, or perhaps if an MA crosses another MA, this could be a study condition because it's based on some indicators/studies available on your chart. You can also use account conditions. For example, only take a trade if you're not already long, if it's a buy trade. Or perhaps, only trigger this exit conditions if you're actually in a position. Now we call these account positions because they check what your account is doing. What's the state of our account? Are we currently flat? Are we long? And so forth. What is our current P&L? And so forth. But we also have time-based conditions. For example, only enable this particular strategy when it's after 10 a.m., after the morning rush is done, or perhaps disable everything or close everything out at 3:30 p.m. when the market is slowing down. And we even allow you to scale into a position or scale out of a position, which is typically what you do in real trading anyways, where you don't commit yourself fully to a position. You might scale in. As the trade pans out, you want to take some risk off the table and scale out of your position as well. And this can be achieved by defining multiple profit targets and multiple stop losses. All right. So you may think, okay, wow, cool. I can do all this with MotiveWave now. But let me, because your first thought will be, well, this is done for live trading. But it is not just there, because you can actually do some other stuff as well. Because besides live trading, which is the obvious thing to do, you can actually prototype some ideas. Now, you may have an idea about something that you may think it works out, but perhaps not. You're not certain yet. Well, with the strategy builder, you can now simply click this idea together in form of a strategy and then backtest it. Meaning you can, use the market replay mode to evaluate the performance of this idea. And you may find out, wow, this idea really sucked. It was not profitable. But guess what? Figuring this out at the backtesting stage is much, much better than figuring out at the live trading stage. So this is another use case of the strategy builder to prototype and backtest your trading ideas. And you have the ability, of course, to save your strategies, to load existing strategies, or to even share them with other users. We have, they can be exported to a file, which you can then send perhaps to your friend or your colleagues to try out the same idea on his end or her end. All right. So now, without further ado, let's build some strategies together. So I'm going to ask Nicholas. Nicholas, are you ready?
All right, so we're going to demonstrate how you can use the strategy builder to prototype some strategies and make some strategies that you can trade in real time. And the first strategy we're going to start with is a strategy that uses our plot shifter indicator. I've called it here the plot shifting and break even stops strategy. So we're going to be demonstrating how plot shifting works, how that's important for the strategy builder, and how the break even stops, which is a new feature, works. Now, this strategy will be on the 1 minute S&P 500 futures chart, the ES chart. And the strategy will basically take a long entry when price crosses above the hourly high of the 9 to 10 a.m. hour bar from the 1 minute chart. And it'll have various dynamic range-based targets and stops. And by range, in this case, talking about the opening range, which is what the breakout is based on, the high of that first hour. So let me open up MotiveWave here. One moment. Okay. Drag this in. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is the plot shifter. So we're going to be releasing a lot of studies like this, and they are very handy. So the plot shifter is a study that you will find once you download it in the trading indicators menu. It's called plot shifter. And basically what it does is it allows you to reference an existing plot on the chart and plot a new plot based on that with some sort of adjustment that fits your strategy. So say, for example, you wanted to, and in our case, this will be the case. Let's say you wanted to see what in this case, I'm on the Apple, let's say 1 minute chart. Well, what if I wanted to trade the high of the first hour of the day? So if price crossed above the high of the 9 to 10 a.m. hour, or the 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. hour, I want to take a long if we cross above that high. Well, how am I going to know what that high is? Well, what the plot shifter allows you to do is, for one, it allows you to reference a specific time. So let's say I wanted to know the high of the 9 a.m. hour, the first hour of the day, or the first 30 minutes of the stock trading open day. Well, I would say use specific time. So I want to reference the chart at 9 a.m., 9-0, and I want to reference the high. I can then hop into options and say I want to use the 1 hour bar size. And once I click create here, we're going to see that on the chart, we now always have plotted with this line here, the high of that first hour from 9 to 10 a.m. I don't have extended trading hours on right now. So we see that that is always the high between 9:30 right here and 10 a.m. And on the previous day, here was 9:30, 10 a.m. It marked the high, which was here. Or let's say, for example, we had a simple moving average, such as this, and we might have a 20 simple moving average based on the close price. Well, I might want to trade based on this 20 simple moving average, but I might not really care about exactly that value. So maybe the value's here. We see we crossed above that. Maybe I don't really care about that exact value. Maybe I care about that value plus or minus a certain amount of ticks. So maybe I want to see what is the 20 moving average plus 20 ticks or minus 20 ticks. Or what was the 20 moving average 10 bars ago? And you'll see how this comes into play in a moment, but this is also easy. So I don't want to use specific time anymore. I click that off and I want to reference the input simple moving average. So if I click create here, second, I'm on the 1 hour, make sure I'm not on the 1 hour, use the chart bar size. So here it's just plotting exactly what the SMA was, but maybe I want to know what was the SMA 10 bars ago. So I can click bars ago 10, apply. And now you see it's creating a moving average that's lagging by 10 bars. Maybe I want to see what's the value plus 100 ticks. Or, sorry, value shift. This is actually in pure values. So plus $1, what would the MA look like? So you're able to create these shifted values. And once you get started with the strategy builder, or if you already use it, you're going to see how you probably already can estimate how handy this is. It's going to help you a lot. These are very handy plots to use in your strategy that give you a lot of versatility. So you can create an endless amount of variations of the plots on the chart, come up with whatever logic you can possibly imagine, whatever fits your idea. And the first strategy we're going to start
And
with,
Nicholas, just real quick, while you're at this, because I saw some questions regarding whether this plot shifter study will be made available to all existing users of the strategy builder. And the answer is, of course, you will receive it all tomorrow, along with the newest version of the strategy builder as well.
yes, definitely. So what I've done here is I have created a strategy, and the way that this strategy works, let's get this. I'm actually going to start over on another chart just so I can make it really clear how this works. So the logic behind this strategy that we're going to demonstrate is essentially that we're using the plot shifter to look at the first hour opening range starting at 9 a.m. So what are ES futures doing between 9 and 10 a.m.? That's our big opening logic. We want to know what's happening there. So first of all, I want to know what's the high of that opening range. So between 9 and 10 a.m., what's the high? I'm going to color that in green. So this line right here is giving us that opening range between 9 and 10 a.m. This was the high, wherever this was. I think it was on this bar, or it was back here. So this was the opening range high between 9 and 10 a.m. on ES futures. And why am I focusing on 9 and 10 a.m.? No reason in particular. I'm just demonstrating, but it might be related to the fact that futures tend to act up around that time as the market officially opens. So now I've got the high of that range, and I'm going to do the same thing for the low of that range. So I'll open up another plot shifter. I'll set that to red. It is set in the options to the bar size 1 hour, and I'm on the 1 minute chart. So now I've got the hourly high and the hourly low for the 9 to 10 a.m. period. And finally, I want to know what is the midpoint of that first hour. Now I can see, okay, here's the high, here's the midpoint, and here's the low of that opening hour. And the logic behind this strategy, what I want to do is I want to look once we pass 10 a.m. So once that first hour of range, which is developing here, once that hour is completed developing, which is at this point at 10 a.m., I want to look when we get a breakout above the high of that opening hour, I want to go long. And you'll see the way I'm going to define a breakout is that the low of the 1 minute bar crosses above this 1 hour. And if you look here, none of the lows of any of these bars actually cross above. So these wouldn't be breakouts. I really like to use lows for breakouts and highs for breakdowns just to make sure we really do snap out of a range. So in this case, the first time the low broke above would probably be around here on this bar. It's that low crossed above. So this would be our breakout signal. And then I want to set targets and stops based on these plots that I have here. And what we're going to do, I've just based this off of, anecdotal knowledge that I looked at the ATR, the average moving range of ES on the 1 minute and the daily. And I thought that it seemed realistic to head for 0.5% and 0.125% and 0.2% profit targets. So you're going to see I'm going to have 3 profit targets. So once we get this breakout, I'm going to set one target, 0.5% above, 1.125%, and 1.2%. And we're going to have 2 stop losses. We're going to have one stop loss that closes out half of our trade right at the midline here of the range. So once we get that breakout, we're setting our targets, but we're setting a partial stop loss at the mid. So if it doesn't work out, we hit back at the mid. We're making sure we immediately close out half the trade. It's fairly logical. And finally, we'll have a total terminal stop loss, a hard stop loss down at the low of the range. So if we ever come down here, we are going to close out the trade entirely. And what you're going to see is I have associated one of the targets, the first target, with the midline stop loss. So we had that stop loss in the middle to close out partially if we crash back down to here, if the breakout doesn't work out. But if we hit that first target, we are going to get rid of that stop loss. We're no longer worried, and we're going to move it up to break even. So wherever we entered, that's where this stop loss is going to shift to. It's going to adjust its order price once we hit that first target. So we're going to make sure we protect our gains and we let our winners ride. So one other thing I really want to draw to your attention, and you're going to see this package we're going to have packed into a deal here, is we have over 300 indicators that we've converted entirely from ThinkOrSwim. So ThinkOrSwim has another trading platform from TD Ameritrade. They have hundreds of indicators, 300, and we have converted them all into the MotiveWave language. So you have access to these 300 plus indicators, and there's really so much you can do with all these indicators and how you can use them in your strategies. And in this case, in this strategy, I'm actually going to use an indicator from that pack that is called the standard dev channel. And this, I believe, is based on linear regression lines and a channel. So let me find this right here, standard error channel. And here it's these blue lines here. It's basically plotting kind of like a trend channel that's giving us a higher and lower and mid range. And in this strategy, instead of setting my terminal stop loss based on the bottom end of that first hour range, I'm going to base it on this other indicator just to show how you can combine indicators and mix and match their logic. So our terminal stop loss is always going to be based on the lower end of this channel. So I'm going to hop over to this chart here on ES. And here is what's going on in this chart. So here is the green line, the blue line, the red line we just saw in that other chart, which are the high, the midpoint, and the low end of that first hour of trading defined back at 9 a.m. If I scroll back, we would see where that starts out. And the other indicator I have on this chart is these yellow lines, which are the standard dev channel. So we can see down here, this is that lower end of the regression channel that I was talking about that we're going to use as our ultimate stop loss. So now finally, I'm going to open up the strategy builder and we're going to see how I set up this logic to fit kind of the things I just outlined. So when I open up this strategy builder, I hop over to my trading plans. So we spoke about one trading plan. We're going to be trading the opening range breakout, right? When the low of the 1 minute chart crosses above that hourly high, first hour of the day. And so I called this first trading plan, my first idea for position, opening range breakout long. And in the plot conditions for this, I have said, open up my plot conditions window, that I have certain conditions set out for what I want to be satisfied to take my long entry. And my only condition is at the low of the current bar on the 1 minute chart. So the low 0 bars ago crosses above the plot shifter value of the H, which references the high. You can see we have the midpoint M and low L, the high of the 1 hour chart. So when the low crosses above the 1 hour high, and the 9 here references 9 a.m., so 9 to 10 a.m., the 1 hour. If that crossover happens 0 bars ago, meaning on the current bar within 0 bars, so if this all happens right now, then I want to take a long entry in my actions here. So I say these conditions are satisfied, take a long entry. And the long I'm going to take is going to be a quantity of 100. And obviously that's a lot of money on ES, but just take this, as arbitrary. It's just an example. So I can demonstrate kind of the partial exit stop losses and targets that we're going to see in a second.
And
So
if you're wondering, just real quick, Nicholas, why there are so many decimal places behind the quantity, this is because of cryptos. Some cryptos like Bitcoin or some other ones, they have very small fractions that you may want to trade them in. And this is why we have so many digital digits after the decimal point available, because the strategy builder, of course, also supports crypto trading.
Yes, so that's not going to cause a problem for you if you're trading stocks. Just type in 100, click enter. But once you click OK, you come back, you might, not in this case apparently, but you may see all those decimal points. It's not going to affect anything. You don't have to worry about it. It's just something, it has to be there. We can't remove it. It's the platform. They're there in case you're trading cryptocurrencies or partial shares. So I want to trade that breakout. If we break above that first hourly range, if we break above the high, I want to go long for 100 units. And I've also set a time condition. So in the strategy builder, you have plot conditions. We can set up all these different pieces of logic, which are, gives a lot of options. You can also set account options. So I only want to take this long trade if my current market position is flat, or if I'm already long or short, or I only want to take it if my unrealized profit and loss since the strategy was activated is X or Y, something like that. I have no account position, conditions right now, excuse me. But I do have a time condition. So I don't want to be trading that hourly range until the hour is finished. So in my time conditions, I've said I only want to take that breakout trade if we are starting at or after 10 a.m. So if the minute bar that we're on right now is after 9 a.m., 10 a.m. If we're past 10 a.m., obviously the range has been developed, then we want to consider that trade and look for that breakout. So what will happen here is once we break above that green line, we're going to take a long entry. But now we have a bunch of targets and stops that I've set up. So I've set up 3 targets and 2 stops. It looks complicated. I'm going to explain how they all work. So remember, when we go long, we're entering for 100 units. And I've set up 3 targets. So my first target will be placed at a percentage value. So 0.05, 0.05% above the entry price. So right when we get that long entry, we're going to set a target, a limit order. The order type is limit, 0.05% above my entry. And we're going to be closing out a percentage of our plan's entry order size. So we entered 100 units. Our first target is going to close out almost half. It's going to close out 40% of the initial trade. So right away, we're going to have a limit order placed for 40 shares that we want to exit out for 40 units. You can see that this target is associated with our plan we called opening range breakout long. Our second target, we're going to have at 0.125%, so a little higher than our first target. And this one is only going to close out 10%. So if we have closed out 40% of we hit our first target, we started off with 100 units. We're going to close out 40 of those units. We'll have 60 left. Once the strategy or once the entry begins, this 10%, because we enter with 100 units, will be 10 units. It'll want to close out 10 shares at the second target. But if we hit our first target, our entry size is going to be, or our position size is going to be reduced, right? Because we started with 100 units. We're going to hit our first target. It'll close 40 units. We'll have 60 left. And this will actually dynamically adapt. So this actually, if you play around with the strategy builder, you play around with automated strategies, you're going to see how useful this is. You don't have to think ahead. So once we hit our first target, we're going to close out 40 units of our 100. We'll have 60 left. This target will then automatically adjust its size. So it's going to, again, represent 10% of what we have remaining, which in that case, when we have 60 units left, is going to be 6. So we'll see how that order adjusts to 6 in real time in a moment. So that's our second target. And our third target is at 0.2%. If we hit this one, it's over. I want to close the remaining plan position. So whatever we have left in the trade, whatever has happened, we've hit our targets or partial stops. I just want to close the trade. That's enough profit. So all these targets were associated with our opening range breakout long trading plan, which we defined back here. And then I have 2 stop losses. So the first stop loss for this trade, it's associated with our entry and it's plot based. And this stop will close out a percentage of the strategy position. So if we hit this stop loss, immediately, whatever our current position is, if we've hit 1 target, 2 targets, whatever, if we hit this stop loss, we're closing out half the trade. We're not as confident anymore. And in this case, our stop loss is plot based, and it's based on the price input plot shifter M true 9 1 hour, which, if we remember, was the midpoint of that first hour's range, which is the blue line back here. So if price comes back down to the blue line, we hit that, we're closing out half no matter what happens. And finally, we have a terminal stop loss. And this stop loss is plot based, and it's based on the lower line of that study I showed you back here, these 3 lines, these yellow lines from the standard dev channel from our ThinkOrSwim studies pack. If we ever hit this line, it's over. We're closing the entire trade. It has clearly not gone well. So that's our second stop loss. So remaining plan position is the order size. It'll always close the rest of our trade. It's a stop loss order, and it's based on that lower line. And I've also I've enabled follow plot and trail, which means that when we get our breakout, it's going to set the hard stop loss down here. But as this line moves up, it's also going to follow that plot, and it'll only ever trail up. So it'll only ever tighten the stop loss. So we don't have to worry about getting a breakout, setting it way down here. And then that ends up, kind of doing us a disservice as price goes up, but this stays static. No, the stop loss is going to follow. So we make sure we protect some gains. All right, so we have gone over everything except one thing. And the one thing we didn't go over is that when we hit that first target, I might have covered it, but we are going to set to break even on fill. So when that first target gets filled on the moment that it gets filled, we are going to set this stop loss. We could have said none, but we're going to set stop 1 to break even. So once that first target gets hit, stop number 1, which is right here, stop 1, will be set to break even. So initially it's based on that midpoint blue line. It'll close at half the position, but once we hit that first target, it's going to adjust to our entry price. So we are going to protect ourselves against losses and protect our gains once we hit that first target. Now I'm going to let it run the strategy in real time, and we'll see how it goes. So I have not run it yet. I want to let this range develop. So let's go 1 bar at a time. So we see here that first hour, right now it's 9:22 a.m. We're in replay mode here. So we're kind of replaying what would have happened in real time. We see that range developing. These green, blue, and red lines have not solidified yet, as we're still in the first hour range. And at this point now, we're about to hit 10 a.m. The range is established. So now these lines are static. The first hour between 9 and 10 a.m. that we defined is done. The plot shifter is showing us this first hour range. So now if the low of one of these bars crosses above that breakout line, the green line, we should get our long entry, and we should see our targets and stops placed automatically. So let's wait right there. So we just had a breakout, and actually a lot happened in that bar. In replay mode, there are some limitations. You can't see every single tick within a bar, but we can get an estimate here of what happened, and I'll explain it to you. So what happened here is right on this bar, we had that breakout we're looking for. The low of this 1 minute bar crossed above our breakout threshold, the green line. And once it did, on the following bar, because that's how I have it set up right now, there's an option in the strategy builder. I have it set up to make its decisions once the previous bar closes. So this bar closed, it decided, hey, we just had that breakout that he defined. We're going to go long for those 100 units. So we see this trade right here. It went long 100 units at an entry price of 3,765. And it placed 3 targets. One of the targets it placed for 0.05%. Just this right here. 0.05%. And if you remember, our first target would have closed out 40% of our initial entry. And our initial entry was 100. And within this first bar, we got our entry. And before the bar closed, we actually hit our first target. And that's why we see this sale here for 40 units. So we got our entry on the breakout. Then we hit our target within 1 bar and it closed out 40. And if you see this stop loss here, stop for 30 units, half of the trade. If you remember, that's our first stop loss. It's always going to close out half. When we got our entry, this stop loss was actually down here at the midpoint. But we hit our first target. And if you remember, it is set to make that stop loss change to break even. So the second we went long, it placed a stop down here. We hit our target. And then it adjusted our stop loss, our 50% stop loss, to break even. So it moved this stop loss order up to 3,765, which was our entry price. So it moved it to break even. And now at this point, we've still got our other 2 targets. This one target here at 6 units up here, 3,769, which I believe is supposed to be 10% of our remaining position, which it makes sense. There's 60 and that's 6. And then if we hit this target, it's going to close out the whole trade, 60. And let's walk this forward. Okay. So what happened here? You notice that we came down, we closed out half, it hit our stop loss. Then our profit targets adjusted to reflect the remaining 30 units. We came up, we hit those, and it closed the trade for a profit. Let's just go ahead and see if we can find another example that might be a little slower moving without hitting our targets so quickly. Okay, so we'll run this forward. Right here, we came down below the range, right down here, below that breakout point, the high of the first hour. And we crossed back above. The low of the bar crossed above here, and we took a 100 unit long on this bar. And again, we hit our first target, which is very short. It's not a far way away from our entry price, 0.05%. That's the point. It closed out 40 units. So right away we went long, and then we closed out 40 units when we hit that first target. It then adjusted our stop loss, which was down here, to our entry price. So we've got a break-even stop. And you can see way down here at that lower range of the channel we talked about, we have that hard stop loss still down there. And you'll notice as we walk forward, hopefully if we don't hit our targets too fast, adjust this a little so we can get a better view, that as we move forward, you're actually going to see, well, in this case, the range is moving downwards. But if this range was moving upwards, we would see this stop loss trail. Hopefully we'll see that in a second, but it is a trailing stop loss. We have our 2 targets here and our break even. We end up hitting our 2 targets. Okay, so these have been fast trades so far. Let's let it run a little bit and see if we get a new day with a new range. Maybe we'll get some slower moving trades. Here, again, we had a very fast trade. I'm not going to stop to analyze it because we hit our targets extremely quickly. They're very tight targets. Okay. So here, again, we broke above. We hit our first target. Our stop loss got adjusted to our entry price. We hit it. Now we have 2 targets placed and our terminal stop loss down at the bottom. We'll see what happens as we run forward. We can see that this stop loss down here, 3,695, is trailing upwards, and we end up hitting our targets. So hopefully I don't want to be too redundant going through these situations. I don't know at which point we are going to end up hitting our terminal stop loss. Here we can see it trailing up, 37, 3701, 3702. Hit our target, hit our second target. So this strategy has been fairly successful right now. I kind of wanted to demonstrate hitting the stop loss. Maybe if I started at a different time, that would happen. But I hope you got the point that you're able to set these break-even stop losses now. And the position sizing for your targets and your stop losses as your trade progresses are dynamically adjusted. So you don't have to think too far ahead. You just want to tell yourself, hey, when I hit this target, I want to close 50%. When I hit this stop, 25%. It's going to manage it for you. That's the big benefit of this. And
that's awesome. Just real quick, Nicola, let me just comment on something, because as you can see what Nicola has done here, and I literally have asked him a couple of hours ago, hey, Nicola, can you create a fairly complex strategy, which, tries out a trading idea? And he came up with this. And you know what? This was only possible because of the strategy builder, because he was able to click it together. If this would have to be programmed, there's no chance to get it done so quickly. So this is one of the benefits of, being able to click together your strategy. And you probably agree with me that this is a fairly complex strategy. It uses plot conditions, multiple indicators are involved, being shifted up and down an opening range, multiple targets, break even, multiple stop losses. Man, it's a complex strategy, but once you get the hang of it, and I know some stuff may have been a bit overwhelming, as Nicola explained it in the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, and we have documentation material, it actually is quite fast to click these things together. Wouldn't you agree, Nicholas?
Definitely. And the big thing, Daniel's talking about how complex this is. And let's look here in the trading plans, just in case you're wondering, can it handle my ideas? You can have many plans. So you can have 10 different trading plans with, 40 targets and stops. We're using literally something like 1/10,000th of the complexity that's possible here. We're only using one plot condition. You can have tons. You can have many studies on the chart. So there's a lot to do. And this, like Daniel said, we just thought of this, an hour ago or 2 hours ago and clicked it together very quickly. If you wanted to code something like this, even for me, I'm very experienced coding for MotiveWave. This takes like 5 hours, 6 hours to make sure this works, get all these different features in. So it's definitely very handy as a strategy builder.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. And if you're wondering, oh, you guys are, you're exaggerating. I only told Nicholas just 1 hour ago. Actually, it is really the case, because we are based out of Montreal, and we have one of the biggest power outages that we had in recent history. And Nicholas really had no power for most of the day, and he had to relocate to one of his relatives to do some coding. And this was only possible because of the strategy building. We could click together the strategy, otherwise no chance, and this TechTalk would not have happened.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, this strategy, I was surprised it worked very well. And I was actually kind of, oh, this is a great idea, trading this breakout range at the start of the day and setting these dynamic stops to make sure you're protecting yourselves against losses. But let's say you let this run on the 1 minute chart for, an hour in real time. It covers, 900 days on the chart. How would you know how it eventually performed? Well, in MotiveWave, there's something called a trade report. So you can click up here, click a new tab, click trade report down here at the bottom. And then you select the account we just ran on. So we just ran it in replay mode. I would click replay. I believe it's replay 1 I was on. And then we would click generate report. And it'll tell us, how did we do? Or 1 second, wrong account. Restart that. Trade reports. Replay 2, it must have been. No.
I think it was replay 1.
Oh, you know what happened? Yeah, I think it might have been because I deactivated the strategy. So it forgot the results I had. Let me just try again. All results.
I think that's the right one. It's 95,000. That's what's shown.
Okay. I was looking. I don't know. I don't see a profit factor here, so I'm not sure. I think it's because
That's because we only had winners, actually. If there's only winners, the profit factor would be infinite, and therefore it's not shown in there. But that's the reason. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we have 100% profitable trades. It doesn't even show the profit factor yet because it's infinity. Right. There was no losses.
And if you're wondering how the profit factor is calculated, just as a little side note, it is basically take the profits of all your winners and divide it by the losses of all your losers. And that will give you the profit factor. But since we didn't have any losers, the losses of the losers would be 0, and division by 0 is, as you know, not possible. Therefore, the profit factor was not being displayed.
Yes. So hopefully we would have had a loser. Unfortunately, we did not, and we're still not having losers, but it would have been a very high profit factor. But it's very easy to see your results, and MotiveWave makes that very handy for the strategy builder. So the next strategy I want to show is meant to demonstrate another new feature. So this strategy is going to be highlighting ranged conditions. And what this strategy will do is we're going to use another study from our ThinkOrSwim studies pack, those 300 studies that are very handy, tons of stuff to work with, so many possibilities. If the close of the current bar is above the trailing stop from this study, within the last 5 bars. So the trailing stop study is telling us, the ATR trailing stop study is telling us that generally we're in a long trade here. Things are going up. our trailing stop is below the current close price, closes above it. So if that's the case within 5 bars, and our MA crosses above our middle line MA, which is going to be from another study called the middle line HLA, I think, from our study pack, TOS study pack. So if we're above the ATR trailing stop within 5 bars, and we have this cross from this other study, this long signal, we're going to go long. So it's kind of giving us, one study is telling us that we're in a long trade, we're above the lower trailing stop, and we have this crossover signal. Well, now we have confluence. We have 2 indicators telling us something, and they're relatively independent of one another. We're going to go long. And this strategy is going to be much more simple. We're not even
and if you're wondering, for the existing users, what is the new feature? It is this within 5 bars. This was previously not possible, but now we've added that you can specify within a certain number of bars, something must be satisfied. So this was not possible before, but it's available now.
And our new feature there with the break-even stop losses, I'm going to make sure to bring that to your attention. So if we are above the trailing stop within 5 bars and we get that cross, let's go long. And if the opposite happens, let's go short. So if we're below the trailing stop and we get the cross under, we'll go short. So let's open up MotiveWave again. And the feature, just to refresh your memory, if you already have the strategy builder that I just demonstrated, or I tried to bring attention to in this strategy, is that now you have the set to break even on fill option. So when a target gets hit, now you can have the condition that if that target gets hit, I want to adjust a certain stop loss. One of my stops can have up to 20. If our target gets hit, I will adjust that stop to break even. So that was kind of the highlighting point and the dynamic sizing of this strategy. But with our new strategy here are those studies I was talking about. So these dots here on the chart, these blue dots and these pink dots, they come from our TOS study pack down here in the A to B section. And this study is called ATR trailing stop. So I placed it on the charts. I use the default settings and it creates this trailing stop, which I guess simulates a sort of, trades, a reversal trade strategy. And the other study I applied was called middle, high, low MA. And I got that from the M to N section, middle, high, low MA. And it plots these 2 MAs. And they are based on a certain averaging type, a high to low length, and a length for the averaging of them. It's an interesting study. You can read the description of it if you would like. But we are now going to set conditions to build a strategy based on this. And if you remember, what I was saying was that if the close price of the current bar is above the trailing stop, which are these dots. So if we're above the trailing stop within the last 5 bars, and this blue line crosses above this red line, then we're going to get a long signal. So for some examples of that happening. So here, for example, right here, we would have had a long signal because close price was above the blue dots, the trailing stop, and the blue line crossed above the red line. So we were above the trailing stop within the last 5 bars, and our lines crossed. We would have had a long here. We would have never closed it until we were here, which was now the close price is below the trailing stop and the blue line crossed below the red line. We would have a short entry. So it's a reversal strategy. We're not doing targets and stops. So I'll open up the strategy builder here and I'll show you how I set that up. So I have 2 trading plans, one for my long entry and one for my short entry. And for my long entry, this is where that new feature comes in, which is actually really awesome. And there's so many possibilities for this. So I'm very excited about this one. It is within bars over here, right on the right side. Let me just open this. We can scroll over. So if the close, this first condition, if the close price is greater than the ATR trailing stop within 0 bars. So if the current close is greater than the current ATR trailing stop, those blue dots, and this condition happens within 5 bars. So it doesn't have to be, this didn't have to be true on just the current bar. It could have been true anytime in the last 5 bars. If that's the case, if this happened, that we were above the trailing stop within the last 5 bars, and our MA, the blue line, crossed above our MHL MA, which is the red line in that study, on the current bar. So if we were above the trailing stop within 5 bars, and then we just had that crossover of those 2 lines, then I want to take an action. So the arrow, our conditions, heads over to our actions. we're going to take a long. And in this case, default trade lots is my order size, which tends to be 1 unit. And we're going to go long 1 unit at market. We're not going to use a limit or a stop order. It's going to go long. And then, so we'll go long. In this case, if we only had that, we would just be perpetually long, right? We would go long and our strategy has no logic for exiting. It would just remain long forever. But we have another plan, which is we're going to go short sometimes. And plot conditions here are if the close is less than the trailing stop within 5 bars, and our blue MA crosses below our red MA on the current bar, then we're going to go short. So I think that's pretty clear. And we're just going to let this run now. We'll see nice and slow where we get our first signal. I don't want this to go too fast and we miss our opening point. So something in MotiveWave, if you're running in replay and you're not too familiar, down in the bottom right, click this little gear icon and just adjust the bar delay. So I don't want the bars to go too fast. I'm going to put 250 milliseconds, so a quarter second every bar. And now I can just confidently let it run. It's not going to go too fast. So I can press stop once we get our first entry. So I can confirm things are going properly. Okay, so now we're above that blue ATR trailing stop. I believe it's the blue line crossing over the red line. I might have been mistaken. It might be the red crossing above the blue, but we'll see in a moment. So we're above the trailing stop. We don't have that cross between the MAs. It is, as you can see, we're not getting any signals. And bear with me, we might get a short entry first. I'm not sure. I did not test this beforehand, but let's wait to see. Okay, so here we are below the trailing stop, the pink trailing stop, right? Within 5 bars, we were below it. We've been below it for a while, but now we had that blue line cross below the red. That's our short condition. That happened here. On the next bar, we entered a short. So now this strategy is going to remain short until we get a long trade. It's never going to stop out until we get that opposing condition for our long entry plan. So still, we're short, we're short, we're short. Okay, things are reversing. We're above the blue. Looks like that blue line's about to cross above the red line. And it did. Now, this is interesting. This is drawing attention to the within bars feature. So we had the blue line cross above the red here, which was our long condition. And it closed our short and it went long. So now we're long 1. We closed out $5.28 or something like that of our first short trade. But you might be wondering, why did we go long? We're below the trailing stop. Well, yeah, we are now. But our condition was that we're above it within 5 bars. So when this cross happened, we weren't above it here, 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 but on the 4th and 5th bar, we were. So it is true that we were above the long trailing stop within 5 bars of now. We were above it back here. Then we had that cross. That's our condition for long. So we went long. Trade plays out. Still long. Things are going our way. And the next thing that happens has to be that we go short. And with the logic of why I really like this type of strategy is it just lets your winners ride. And because these trailing stop indicators, they're fairly conservative, you know, they change directions when the trade or the price action changes direction. Your losses aren't going to get too big. I mean, unless you have a giant gapping bar, but in general, they're not going to be too big because once price changes trend, you know, relatively a certain amount, this plot is going to swap sides. And so are these MAs. So although we don't have a target or a stop, they are kind of logically managing their own risk to a certain extent. So we're still long. This is turning out to be a really big winner. I'm going to speed it up a bit because I actually want to make sure we don't only hit good trades if that's the case, but that we at least get one loser so we can look at those performance statistics. So we're still long. Finally, we went short. We were below the ATR here. And we got that cross, so it went short. Let it run. Long. Short. And hopefully we get a long here. There we go. Okay, so now we have some winners and some losers. But I hope I got the logic across for this strategy. I'm going to open up the trade report now and generate a report. And here now we have gross profit of $18. gross loss of around 460. And we have a profit factor now, finally, which on the long side was 2.64. On the short side was 10.514 in this small little sample set. But you can see now how this looks once we have some winners and some losers.
Great. And actually, there was a question about the profit factor, about how it's being calculated, just because you mentioned it. It is the dollar amount of all winners divided by the dollar amount of all losers. And this
these figures, right? It's gross profit divided by gross loss.
That's right.
I believe.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's the absolute value of this. And as a rule of thumb, a profit factor above 1 indicates a potentially profitable trading system. Below 1, it is not. And the higher the profit factor, the better it is.
I remember reading, just for traders references, that certain hedge or certain trading firms look at 1.5 profit factor as the big figure. So once it's above 1.5, they consider that to be a reliably profitable quantity. Between 1 and 1.3, it's good, but it's iffy. There's still a lot of risk. And anything above 2.0 is kind of like spectacular.
Yeah. Of course, here we only had a very small sample size, only 6 trades, but still, it's a good start. And again, this was a strategy that Nicola literally invented within the last hour.
Yeah, definitely. So this is just, some throwaway thing, but who knows? It could have a lot of potential if you like, especially with something like Tesla or something that tends to trend. These indicators are totally based on the trend. So, there could be potential in very simple ideas, and they're easy to prototype. And
on that topic, the user also wanted to know, now, how would I go about live trading this? We're seeing this in replay mode, but what about if I want to live trade it? What is required? And it's actually quite easy. It's the exact same steps, but you would, disable replay mode. Maybe Nicholas, you can show how this can be disabled.
So it's just as easy as turning off replay mode. And if I'm not connected to interactive brokerage right now, but if I was, the second I click activate, it's going to trade my account live as the bars roll in. It's that easy.
Yeah, and this works the same with any brokerage you're connected to. This could be TradeStation, Interactive Brokers, TD Ameritrade, and whatever MotiveWave is compatible with.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Wow, this was
that's all the strategies I have set up here.
That was a great demo. Thank you so much. Let me grab the screen again real quick just to wrap it up, because we're nearing the hour mark again. And I just have a few concluding remarks. The first one was somebody was wondering what is our YouTube channel? Well, this is how it looks like, and you simply can go to youtube.com/@my-trading indicators. But as mentioned before, if you go to our homepage, tradingindicators.com, here on the top right corner, you also see the YouTube icon. Click on it; it will bring you directly to our YouTube channel. All right. So now back to my slides. A couple of things. So we had these strategies, but just a quick reminder: what is a typical workflow if you wanted to create a new strategy? Just as to recap a little bit. Well, there's a couple of steps that you would need to do, and the first one is to really add all the studies that you need in your strategies to the chart, because they must be applied to the chart first. That's step number 1. Then you would save it, and I would love to save it as a template because this is for easy reuse. Maybe later on you want to modify your strategy, or maybe you close down MotiveWave. If you save it as a template, you can simply reopen all these studies at once to your chart again. Once this is saved, open up your strategy builder, start creating your trading strategy, as Nicola has shown to you. And then once it's done, try it out. And of course, try it out first in replay mode. And once you're happy, of course, once you've tested it sufficiently, you can move on to live trading your strategy. Now, this is for creating a brand new strategy. If you were to modify an existing strategy, it's quite the same. You would once again load or apply all the studies that are required by this existing strategy, load them to the chart, and here the template becomes very handy because it allows you to, apply all these studies at once to the chart. Then open up the strategy builder, choose to load an existing strategy in the open dialog, and click create. Then go to the settings and modify the strategy settings as needed. And again, test them out in replay mode, or if you're happy, go to live mode. So as mentioned, you will be able to save your strategies to file so that you can reopen them later on, or perhaps even share them with your friends or colleagues as you see fit. All right. So I hope you found this useful. I'm going to ask one more time, are there any questions? I'm going to look through the questions right now. Ben wants to know, he's new to MotiveWave, how many indicators do they offer versus the TOS study library? Well, there are a ton of indicators built into MotiveWave. I don't know how many exactly.
There's 150 to 200 now.
Okay, yeah, so a lot, 100 to 150. So these come built in MotiveWave. But of course, there's always more that you can have. And if you want to apply the TOS, the ThinkOrSwim studies, or you want to have them available, you can simply use them through our TOS study pack. And how to get this study pack, I will show you in a second. All right. So the next question is from Sam. Do you have any ready-made trading strategies to our disposal? We do have a couple of pre-made strategies, some sampled strategies that we came up with as part of our training material. And if you use the strategy builder, you will get access to these strategies as well. All right, that was from Sam. Angie wants to know, how can we get it? Well, thanks for the segue. I'm going to tell you this right now. So we do have a special, and the special will be available only up until Easter, because Easter is coming up. So you have a few days up until the Easter holidays are done. We do have a 20% special on the strategy builder. The regular price is at $9.97, but for the next 4 days, until the end of Easter Monday, you will get it to the original price of $7.97, which is a 20% discount. And we are going to make this special available for the first 10 users. And you will get the strategy builder for MotiveWave for life. This means there will be no recurring fees. Yeah, this is the price you paid. That's it. You're done. You will get access to all future updates. And our current users know this. We are right now, I believe, in version 1.026. So there have been quite a few updates along the way, and they all have been made available to all our existing users.
Daniel, if you don't mind, I just want to segue to a point right now that 2023 is kind of going to be our big year for updating the strategy builder. So in 2022, we released the strategy builder, got a lot of updates. By 2023, we really have big plans. So it would be a good idea to lock this in now. You get access to all those future updates, and the usability of the strategy builder and the things you can do with it are going to get a lot better soon.
That's right. So, as we are discovering new things, what we can do with the strategy builder and what you can do with MotiveWave, we're always striving to improve the handling of the strategy builder to make it even easier for you to create your strategies. And of course, this version of the strategy builder will include the brand new break-even feature and the ranged conditions, which is Nicolas shown you. And it will also include our plot shifter study, which is a very handy study to, to take advantage of the built-in studies in MotiveWave and to tweak them a little bit to your needs. So if you want to take advantage of this, simply go to tradingindicators.com/strategy, and the first 10 users will get the strategy builder at the price of $7.97. And for those of you who don't like to type things in, we also do have a QR code which you can scan to get this version of the strategy builder. And if you want the discount, I believe you do want it, simply type in strategy 20. One word, strategy 20 in the discount code field, which will give you 20% off the original price, and which will bring it down to $7.97. And this is for life. Okay. Now, you may also wonder, what about this TOS pack that Nicholas mentioned, these 300-something studies? Well, since they are such a good match with our strategy builder, we decided to also extend our Easter special for what we call the TOS value pack. And we're also going to give you 20% off the original price, which is $459. But for Easter, it's going to be $367. And again, this is for life. So the first 10 users will get this TOS value pack, which contains more than 300 studies from the ThinkOrSwim study library. If you're wondering what these studies are, again, you can simply go to tradingindicators.com/value for value pack. And there we have a list of all the built-in studies, or all the studies that we have converted from ThinkOrSwim to MotiveWave. So this is really a great resource to mix and match your trading strategy, because you have so many options now out of basically pre-coded for you. And all you need to do, of course, all in quotes, is to put them together to create your own trading strategy. And of course, you can bring in some of the power of ThinkOrSwim of TOS to MotiveWave that way. Now, again, here is the QR code, which will bring you to this URL, to tradingindicators.com. And to get the discount, to get the 20% off, simply enter the same discount code, which is strategy20. All right. So this is the special offer that we have for you. Now let's look at some questions. So let me quickly see. What do we have? Yes.
Lewis is mentioning the TOS link is wrong.
Oh, is it? Oh my goodness.
It takes you to the 360 pack, to the power bundle.
Oh, that's okay, no problem. Then let me quickly show you how to actually navigate to this. We are going to fix this right after this webinar. But if you can't wait and want to check it out, what you can do is to simply go to our homepage, tradingindicators.com. And thanks, Louis, for pointing this out. Go down to products and click on all products to see all what we have to offer. And you will then see all our indicators for the various trading platforms that we support. And then you can go down to the MotiveWave section. It just takes a little while to load here. All right, our site is busy. So you go down to MotiveWave, which is just down here. And in here, you will see an indicator called the Study Library Value Pack. This is basically our ThinkOrSwim pack. So the TOS value pack, you can see it here. Simply click on it. And this will then bring you to the TOS study library. And you can see the original price for $459. But again, for Easter, we have a special for you, which get you 20% off by simply entering the discount code strategy20. And if you're wondering what's included, you can see it all. You can see all the studies that we converted to MotiveWave. And Nicholas, I think this took us a couple of months, maybe half a year to do. So this is a lot of work went into this. And Nicholas knows exactly what we're talking about, because he's done most of it, or actually all of it. So it was a lot of work. So all these studies have been converted from ThinkOrSwim to MotiveWave so that you have them available in MotiveWave as well. So you can see tons of studies being converted here. All right. Okay, so let me quickly go back. Again, I will update this code for the recording. And if you want to take advantage of our strategy builder, simply go to tradingindicators.com/strategy, enter strategy20 in the discount code field, and you will get it for $797 for life. Okay. So this pretty much concludes this Tech Talk. Let me just quickly remind you that if you have any questions or if there's anything unanswered, you can always reach out to us by going to our homepage, tradingindicators.com. Look for the contact form, drop us a note. Any feedback is welcome. Our products live by your feedback. So this is what drives us. This is what drives our innovation, is all the good comments that we typically receive about what if you integrate this feature to the strategy builder, or maybe you can add something like this to an indicator. Well, we always listen, and we're trying to always improve our tools based on your feedback to, make them as good as they possibly can be. Oh,
Daniel.
Yes.
Kenneth wants to know, what was the discount code for the study library value pack? Was it strategy 20?
Yeah, it's the same code for both. So strategy 20 is the same code for the value pack and also for the strategy builder.
Thank you.
And we're going to keep this valid up until the end of Easter. So at midnight Easter Monday, these discounts won't be available anymore. All right, great. So I don't see any further questions. So this just leaves me to say thank you to all of you. Thank you, Nicholas, for getting this all figured out and done and ready on time, despite the outage that
thank you. And thank you everyone for attending. Definitely.
Yeah, so thank you so much, guys. I know your time is valuable, so thank you so much for listening. And I wish you all a very nice and happy Easter and some nice holidays. And I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time. And up until then, be safe and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.